Okay, so I'm going to be doing the final testing protocol on this bronze Japanese DSi-XL shell number WJF108547117. I just pulled up my notes on my computer. I don't note anything that I fixed, anything that's wrong. This was a note I left after my first round of testing. I need to check the R button and the game card slot. So that I will do. So I can begin filling out the paperwork. Did I note the version number on this one? No, I didn't. But bronze JPN shell serial WJF108547117. Don't know the motherboard serial number. Yes, I do. H01B2RA A27. Battery life 4 hours, 25 minutes. I'm going to open the console up just to make sure that my serial numbers line up. The serial number I have for the motherboard and the serial number I have for the shell are also matching. They usually do. I think I've only had one case where they didn't, and that was very early on when I was starting to document this stuff. I also need to do something on the interior of this console before I fully put it together, and there's also the risk that I might have to do something with the R button. Yep, okay. My motherboard lines up with both my paperwork and my documentation I have on my computer. So what I'm going to do is add a little piece of Kapton tape, which is this stuff right here, over the connector for the digitizer, as well as the connector for the backlight for the bottom screen. Now, Nintendo did this out of the factory, so it does serve a purpose. I don't know what that purpose is, but I figure if they're spending the money to put these pieces of tape on, then it has to serve a purpose. And a little, I'm not going to miss a really small strip of Kapton tape. Ooh, this one just, don't stick to yourself, tape. There we go. I believe the intention is just to keep those latches down. So vibration or impact, they won't pop up. And then while I'm in here, I can also note that the digitizer is new. I'll show that here in a second. So you can tell because the digitizer ribbon cable is, or the OEM stock ones aren't amber color. They're always like clear. And usually when I'm putting new digitizers on screens, I haven't quite married them to a console yet because I try to find screens that match. There are cases where I will put a new digitizer on a console that has a bad digitizer. Oh, I'm going to keep this unscrewed. And then I'll be able to track the repairs a lot easier, but at this stage, it's usually when I can catch it, like, oh yeah, I used a screen with a new digitizer. So I need to check the A, the R button, and the game card slot. So I'm going to quickly put the battery back on. And first check the R button. I have a R4 card loaded up with some testing software. Diagnose SC, Diagnose SC. I'm just going to check the other buttons since I'm here. I'm just going to press them like 5 to 10 times. Yep, it's still having problems. You can tell it's just not responding. I'm clicking pretty quickly and it's just not. So in this case, I'm pretty sure I've already cleaned that one. Or did a cleaning attempt on it, if memory serves me. So I'm just going to replace it for now. I'll just have to go into a pile of shoulder buttons that need to be replaced. The replacement isn't crazy hard, but it takes time. I actually don't have that many spare buttons kicking around, but I do have a lot of spare right shoulder button assemblies that I do not mind donating. Voila! So since it's already out, I am just going to give it a quick cleaning. Doesn't hurt. So I'll just put in enough IPA that I can submerge the button completely. Then just with a plastic pry tool, I'll just press the button a lot, several times. Which will hopefully work its way underneath the button adhesive and clean the contacts. Definitely not foolproof. As I saw with that other shoulder button, it didn't work. Or maybe it just needed more cleaning, or maybe no amount of cleaning will actually fix it. Doesn't really matter. If the issue survived a cleaning, who knows if it will ever be fully functional. So it's just easier for me just to replace the button if I have to. But for now, since I have so many of these spare parts, I'm just going to use them until I exhaust them all, which I don't think I'll ever actually exhaust these shoulder buttons. But I'll definitely have a pile that just need a button replacement. And I think that's probably good. Since I have some rubbing alcohol out, I'll just quickly rub over these connectors. Alright, let's try that again. R4. Yep. I know the other buttons are working because I've already tested them. I'll do a formal test on it once I confirm that the game card slot and the R button are no longer an issue, when I actually start filling out this paperwork. So for the game card slot, I'm just going to throw a pile of shovelware at it to see how the game, or see how the console responds, if it can pick up all the games and survive a sort of short test I do with them. Crafting Mama, pretty much every console I have will read this, no problem. And that is the case indeed. Dog Whisper has been proven to be recently a very difficult game for my consoles to read. This and the SpongeBob game have been revealing a lot of game card slot issues, and previously these games weren't difficult to read for my consoles, but somehow recently they have been causing issues. Like right now you can see it disappearing. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of pressure on the game card slot and shifting it side to side, or on the game card itself. And you can see how it kind of blips out. It's not supposed to do that. Basically what I'm doing is I'm simulating what would happen if I hit the back of this console, which usually in my shifting, it sort of simulates that without me having to actually just sit here and hit the console a whole bunch. Right now it's not actually correlating, which is a little strange. I'll keep going here. SpongeBob's good. And if you could probably tell, if the console vanished from the console if you accidentally give it a hit, you could tell that there would be quite a few problems with that. If you were playing a game, console would either freeze or just completely shut off. So Wonder Pets used to be my sort of like, almost like all clear cart. This has been the hardest cart to read. If a console can read this no problem, then it's good to go, but the Dog Whisperer has kind of taken that mantle for some reason. Diego game. Jewel 3. So I am more inclined to think that it might be something wrong with the game card. Either I'm just really beating it up just by doing all this testing, or it's now the sort of the indicator that something, it's sort of like the hard mode, as it were, for my game consoles. I'll give it a cleaning. I might as well. I am inclined just to think it's the Dog Whisperer that's giving me problems. what I'm going to do is grab some 99 rubbing alcohol, 99%. Just get a touch of it. Dribble it on the game card. And then just put it in and take it out a whole bunch of times. Sometimes the mechanism for the game card slot kind of doesn't like that it has rubbing alcohol in it. Kind of freezes up. Or it adds friction to the metal housing and of the game card slot and kind of holds on to the game card a little more than it would. Now I did do this cleaning on the Dog Whisperer, so hopefully that will sort of clean up the cart if that was indeed the problem. Hard to say. Since it's 99, it'll dry very quickly. But it's going to be really hard for me to actually tell if that did anything. I kind of noticed freshly after a cleaning, the console will work just fine. Or the game card slot will read just fine, and then suddenly it'll start showing the same symptoms again. So now when I put in the Dog Whisperer and shift the card side to side, it doesn't disappear. So I'm gonna, since the order of testing for the game card slot is a little ways down the list, I'll just hold off on it for now. So we can go ahead and proceed with the testing. I'm gonna grab the software version, which is 1.4.1J. Okay. Now we can go down my list here. So we'll start with motherboard and power board. Console turned on. So that is a check. Now I'll actually go back to the tactile buttons, which was to diagnose and test them there. Again, I'll press each button maybe 5-10 times, just kind of whenever I'm like, yeah, this is good type of deal. The face buttons I usually never have a problem with. Usually if I have a problem with the face buttons, there's something else going on, like the motherboard sustained water damage, and there's just corrosion everywhere, and it got under the buttons. Shoulder buttons are good. And then I'll go in here and I'll tap the mic. It's responding to my taps, so I know the microphone works. I checked it before I put this console together, but I would rather be triple sure that it works. I'll get to more in-depth mic testing here in a little bit. Next is the touchscreen, which I use this application I can't pronounce. I like it because it'll give me the entirety of the bottom screen right away. Where if I were to use Flipnote Studio, I would have to go through a tutorial because most of these consoles I'm factory resetting, so I'm not flashing some person's random family pictures on the internet, which I do anyway, but you know. I try not to. So let me go through that one more time. I noticed my cursor kind of disappeared. That bump on the bottom was completely my mistake. But no jagged artifacting, nice good circles. This touchscreen's fine. It is brand new, so I'd hope it's fine. Check. Speakers, mic, and headphone jack. So for that, I know the speakers and the headphone jack work because part of my battery testing procedure is I play the volume at max through headphones. Of course, in the effort of triple checking, go into the sound app. La 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 la. Well, if I were recording, that would be helpful. La 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 la. Yep, responded to my voice. And now what I'm going to do is kind of do a double here. I'm going to test the headphone jack by slotting in a SD card and playing a song I have loaded up on there. Gorillaz Feel Good Inc. Okay, I can hear it out of the speakers. Now what I'm going to do is plug in my earbuds, and I'm just going to listen to both earbud. Yep. Sounds coming out of both earbuds. And I've also confirmed that the SD card slot works. So the sound system's A-OK. Camera, pretty easy. Press the shoulder button, enter the camera, swap cameras. Both cameras work. Now for the charge port, I hope I still have some clean chargers. Ooh, the last one. I'm going to have to wipe down a few more. So I'm going to have to partially do this off screen. I'll show what I do on screen with a different charger. But my outlets are a little off to the side here, and I don't want to unbundle this cable if I don't have to. Just more work that I don't need to do. Okay. It's more important that I do it with the charger I'm including, because that's the most important one. Put that right there. So what I did, I'll grab my charger that I have here. This is just my loose one that I have for testing. Is with this one that I'm going to include. What I did is I plugged it in, solid orange light, and then I did is rotate it just a little bit. You can see that the charger orange light is steady. Usually the wiggling will sort of reveal if there's solder joint issues on the board. Like if I were to put pressure like in this direction, if there was a cracked solder joint in the charge port, for example, the light might turn off. And that's only going to get worse with time, to the point to where you have to you'll actually have to hold it in a position in order for it to charge. I don't want that. I have a solder iron handy, so it's not an easy thing, or it's a very easy thing for me to fix, maybe not so easy for somebody else. So for the charge port, we're good. So now we're back to the game card slot. I'll do the same test with the same stack of game cards. I'm going to leave Dog Whisperer for last. Let's start off with the SpongeBob game. Oh, well, it would help if I took my R4 card out. Sort of shift the game card side to side. It's not disappearing. I'm just going to give it a whack for good measure. Oh. I'll come back to that. Crafting Mama. Okay. Jeweled 3. Alright. Go Diego, go. And Wonder Pets. Now Dog Whisperer. Yeah, now it's not disappearing. So, again, it could have been the game card that was just a little dirty. Because those game cards go into a lot of different consoles, so it's not impossible for them to pick up something. And I can't seem to easily replicate what's going on with the SpongeBob cart, but Now this cart was also the one giving me issues, so I'm also wondering if it's also just a little dirty. There is some shmoo on one of these pins. just for reference here. Let me get a light on it. Again, these game cards enter a lot of consoles. I can't really show it too well with my camera setup, but it cleared all of my other game cards, even the ones that I declared were very difficult for it to read. So, what is this? A 5 out of 6, I would say, is pretty good. And I'm having to put this console through quite a bit of stress for it to not read the SpongeBob card. It did disappear once. That I was pressing way too hard. Just for good measure, and just kind of to prove a point maybe, I'll grab my copy of Pokemon Heart Gold. Now obviously, this game has only seen a couple consoles in its life. And I can't get it to disappear, so again, how far do I need to go to actually make sure it reads every game flawlessly without any problem? Well, it's kind of up for me to decide, but I'm thinking just whatever's going on with these two games. They've only started recently showing those problems, so I'm thinking it's less about the game card slots and more about the games. Otherwise, it read 6 out of 7 game cards just fine. So I'm going to call that a pass. Next is Wi-Fi, which I'm unable to do because my hotspot is my camera, which my camera is, or my hotspot is my phone, which my phone is my camera. So I'll do that later. I've never had a console fail connecting to a Wi-Fi access point. I really don't think, I can't think of a scenario where I've ever heard of somebody saying they can't connect to a Wi-Fi point without it being the configuration of their router being the issue. So I'm not worried about it. That's not really something that is something I can fix easily. If the Wi-Fi card is bad, I have plenty to replace it with. So for now, I'll put the console back together and get this thing ready for screw covers. I'm noticing that the ends of my gloves are getting a little grody. I'm going to have to replace them after this console. Get all the screws back in. The 2 black ones flank the card slot. Not because they're a different screw, they're the exact same screw as the silver one. Just aesthetically speaking, the black ones hide a little better in those holes than the silver ones. And since these silver ones are being covered by a screw cover, you won't see them. And then the really tiny screw goes right there. Let's see what I got. I am going to grab a paper towel for this so I don't get glue on my playmat. Shouldn't be using enough glue to do that, but better safe than sorry. I'll shove that aside so I can put the screw covers on my spiral notebook here. So now I'll look in my big thing of screw covers. Now this console's in really good shape, so I'm going to want to try and find screw covers that reflect that. Definitely not that one. There's a bottom screw cover and a top screw cover. That screw cover's in really rough shape. That foot's not bad. Oh, I have some black ones in here. They do not belong in there. Those go to a different console color scheme. That's a good screw cover. That's a good one. And not that one. Oh, that one's pretty good. Just need one more upper screw cover, which I'll borrow one of these guys. Hi. One more foot, which I think I'll grab this guy. And then these three black feet I'll put over here in the blue. Doesn't necessarily matter. I have a separate compartment for blue, red, and green, but they all use the same black feet. So what I do to actually put these screw covers back on is usually they'll still have their adhesive on it. Sometimes they don't get taken off when I remove them. Sometimes they do. This one still has its sticker on. I'm gonna just treat it as though that sticker's not there. Doesn't add that much volume. But I'll take some Elmer's glue and then just very lightly like kissing the top of these screws with the Elmer's glue. Not enough to actually like dribble any out, but like enough that a little bit of glue comes out the top. I just touch the top of the screw and then I retract that glue. You don't need much. These screw covers don't see any mechanical stress. So as long as there's just a little bit holding them in, they'll be just fine. And I will sort of plop them in with my metal tweezers. And then using a plastic pry tool, I'll shuffle them into space so I don't accidentally scratch the shell with my tweezers. Now I do notice that these screw covers have like a side to them. Whatever side the adhesive pad was on is more of a glossy color. This one also has the adhesive pad on it still. Alright. Those went on nicely. Now for the back, I do the same. These screw covers do experience a tiny bit of mechanical stress, so I tend to add just a little more than I would for the top screen screw covers. And by mechanical stress being that they get placed, this console will be placed on like a table or a surface, and those little rubber feet will compress, depress. And a lot of the times these screw covers, the adhesive comes off with this, or they get left on the screw. So really the only thing holding it in is this little drop of Elmer's glue that I do. That one went in a little funky. No matter. Okay, this one in. I'm just gonna sort of look at them sideways like this to make sure they're all kind of not necessarily level, but they're all sticking out a little, because that's the entire point. Leave it like that for a second. I'm not really too worried about the glue drying. Those things aren't gonna, the screw covers aren't gonna pop out unless I actually go at them. I'm just trying to get a little situated here. So next what I'll do is wipe the top of this console off and wipe it all around with some distilled water. Grab a syringe. Not the same one I used for alcohol, but I need to sort of let that one dry out. I just have this little cup of distilled water handy, just so I can siphon up a syringe full. And I'll dribble it all over this microfiber cloth and give it a good wipe down. This is mainly just to get all my hand oil off from me putting this console together and touching it and testing it and everything. I don't like wearing gloves all the time if I don't have to. Okay, I'll grab a dry one. That must be a speck under the screen protector. What a pain. Okay. Kind of get stuff situated here. So now I can get to the actual cosmetic assessment of this console. So I am gonna note new digitizer. New digi, put the date. 29th. So the physical condition of the shell. This top glossy shell is actually in really good shape. Like, I'll sort of flash my light over it. There is some streaking left from me. Like, the fact that you can even see the streaking left by my cleaning, it's kind of evident that this thing is in pretty good shape. There is sort of this like band of wear up here at the top. You can kind of see. And there's a lot of light scratching, but this is a glossy shell piece. It's just almost expected. There's a tiny bit of wear around this hinge. There's a nick right there. I remember seeing something on the corner. Yeah, there's a pretty good nick right there. some like scratching here on the back. A little bit of discoloration around the D-pad. I think aside from that, it's pretty good. Very good. I think these two pretty good nicks on the bottom are, I think, what's going to keep me away from calling it excellent. Those are pretty good nicks, so I'll give it a very good. Mild scratching on glossy. And a couple good nicks on the edges. Or on the corners. On there. Physical condition of the hardware. These are button assessment. There is some discoloration around. I actually didn't catch this when I was doing the shell. There's a little bit of paint chipping right here on these corners. A little hard to see. But on the buttons themselves, there are similar paint chippings. I wouldn't have changed to the shell condition score knowing these paint chippings. I'm actually more confident in giving it very good at that point. Screw cover is a good shape. So are the screws. I think I'll give it a very good just for those shoulder buttons. R&L have paint chips. Physical condition of the screen. I don't know how. I must have, when I was testing the screen before putting the screen protector on, got a good scratch in it. It's really frustrating, but I'm fairly positive that's on the digitizer, but it's entirely possible it's on the screen protector. I'm not going to make that call, but that's a pretty good scratch. You can't see it when the console's on, which is important, kind of the key decider here, but it's not light. They aren't light scratches. That's like, you turn it on, you see it. Dang. I was kind of eyeballing it this entire time, like, ugh. The touchscreen works fine otherwise, as you saw, so I'll give it a very good, because of how prominent it is. One scratch on lower. Screen condition, I'm going to quickly turn off my lights. I have kind of a general idea of what I'm looking at, but I've noticed that my lights kind of skew my perception of what I'm looking at, and maybe make one screen look a little different than the other when there's actually no difference. And I don't notice anything. I think these screens are very well matched. I'll kind of let you be the judge of that, but like, maybe I am kind of noticing on this bottom screen there is like very mild yellowing on the edges. Very, like, minor to the point of where it has to be this bleach white screen for me to see it. And let me tell you, when a screen is yellowed, it's yellowed. Let me grab an example, actually. I think I have a battery in one of these Japanese consoles that I've gotten. And yeah, this is kind of a tangent. Humor me. But a lot of these Japanese consoles are very much a victim of just yellowed screens. So this one has pretty good yellowed screens on the edges. And I would say the difference between these two consoles is night and day. So I say mild yellowing, but it's so mild that I'm really having to, like, if I have to look at it for a little bit to actually say, like, okay, yeah, I kind of see a little bit of yellow, I think that's indicative of it's could just simply not there, or I'm looking for something that's actually not there. Of course, I'm giving a completely subjective account that may actually not represent reality. I have no means of actually subjectively measuring these screen colors, so because I think that they match very well, I will give it an excellent. And of course, I get a text message every time I do one of these. Anywho, I am perfectly okay with giving it an excellent. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it is a 9. That is very smack dab in the middle of very good. I would agree with that assessment. And I'll do the Wi-Fi before I forget. And then I'll also do the condition assessment video literally right after this. Put that down there. So that was my final testing protocol for these consoles, and now as I kind of prep it here, it's just one condition assessment score video as well as a few glamour shots later, and it will be on eBay.